We are previewing the Sam F. Davis Stakes on the Turf and Touchdowns podcast this week for our horse racing episode. We've also covered the Super Bowl in our NFL episode. That's on our channel right now. Go check that one out. But we've waited a long time, Tom. We've finally got the Sam F. Davis Stakes to talk about. It's literally, the field has been released in the last 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, it's currently midnight 17. No one's ever said the time like that. 12:17.
I can't tell you how much I hate that.
I hated it as soon as I said it. You know why I said it like that? Because I'm absolutely knackered. It's 12:17 at night. The field literally got released about 20 minutes ago, as you say. But we have been waiting for approximately 48 hours to film this podcast. So why not get it done immediately? Hopefully we're one of the first videos up. And yeah, it's a pretty good race, to be fair. It's not like a proper grade 3 in terms of quality. When you see a grade 3 in the US, it's normally a little bit bleak, small fields, not that much talent. But this is a good race. It's competitive. And I'm looking forward to it. Also, based on what you said a second ago, Super Bowl on the channel, Super Bowl video, one either left or right here, there should have been a link at the start. Click that. Go and watch that video. It's a good video, hopefully plenty of winning tips. We all know you're going to stay up for the Super Bowl, even if you're not an NFL fan. So click that and go and watch our video, please.
Exactly that. The Super Bowl is a big thing. You're going to stay up. You're going to watch the adverts if you're in America. You're going to watch the halftime show, which is... Who's the halftime show this year?
Is it Kendrick Lamar?
Yeah, good job. Couldn't tell you one song he's done.
I didn't expect you to be fair. I could, but that would be boring.
Never really come across him, but I don't know. Let's talk about the Sam F. Davis Stakes. Luke Elder alongside Tom Collins. It's a stepping stone, we'll call it, towards being a potential contender for the Kentucky Derby. Winners of the Kentucky Derby don't generally come to the Sam F. Davis, but things get tougher further along the line, and this year looks a good renewal.
It does look a good renewal, helped by the fact that Chad Brown is sending a horse over, also by the fact that Brad Cox has a string down at Gulfstream, Payson Park this winter, which hasn't been the case in previous years. So there has been extra depth added to this lineup from good trainers. 20 Kentucky Derby points up for the winner in here. Obviously, as we get closer to the Derby, the points in the qualification races increase, but 20 points in recent seasons has kind of guaranteed you a spot. So if you can win this event, then we could be talking about a Derby horse. Of the others in behind, well, they're going to have to go to other trials, which is why this is early in the campaign. Kentucky Derby in approximately 3 months' time. But yeah, as you say, it's a good race. It's a stepping stone, and plenty of these horses do need this stepping stone because they're inexperienced.
Absolutely. 7 horses have won the Sam F. Davis Stakes and then gone on to win the Tampa Bay Derby as well. That is another bigger stepping stone towards the Kentucky Derby before really you move over to Gulfstream and some much, much bigger races, and then you're taking on the bigger preps. But the Sam F. Davis this year does look a strong renewal of the contest. Now, we haven't got a morning line through as we're talking, so we're going into this race entirely blind. But we've been looking at this race long enough because we were looking at the probable entries a little while ago. We've got Poster in here who was added rather late to the mix, who is going to be a very interesting runner, won the Remsen last time around. We've got Owen Almighty in here who we're expecting to be favourite. Treaty of Rome will be towards the head of the market as well, along with John Hancock and maybe Camp Hale. But it's not a race where there's going to be a real lopsided market. It'll be 2-1 the field, something like that.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see anything short. Obviously, as you say, we're without a morning line or a UK market right now, so we have no idea. But we're using our educated guesses, which are usually pretty close to the mark. And I would anticipate Owen Almighty to be favourite. John Hancock's obviously the unknown quantity. We're going to talk about all these horses in good detail in just a second. But this race shapes up to be a pretty interesting punting contest, and we've got differing views. Should we start with the pace?
Yeah, let's start with the pace. Owen Almighty last time around went forward by hook or by crook in any possible way that he could get forward. But he finished 5th. He passed the post in front, and then he got taken out because Irad took out, was it rookie card? I think it was the 4, quite significantly. Yep. So I imagine he'll try and go forward. He at least has got the early speed to do so.
Yeah, the pace lies inside in this contest. I'm very much agreeing with you that Owen Almighty will be pushed up there. Irad's not the most aggressive rider when it comes to being forwardly placed. Obviously very aggressive when it comes to positioning and grabbing a spot that he wants, e.g. that disqualification, which I do feel a little bit for the horse because it was right on the turn and rookie card was on the fence, but also backpedaling. Irad tried to keep his position, but also accidentally cut him up. So it was a right DQ, but at the same time, Owen Almighty would have won that race regardless. And, it seemed a bit frustrating for Connections that he got chucked out. He'll be part of the speed. I think John Hancock will be part of the speed as well. He made all over 6 furlongs on debut. Dr. Ruben M looks a forward-going type, as does Camp Hale, who tried to make all the running last time and is drawn inside here. I actually think Camp Hale is better from off the pace, but when you're drawn one, you have to go, especially at Tampa, because it's a short run to the turn. They're going to go relatively solid fractions. This track generally favours front runners and prominent racers, so I wouldn't want to be too far back. But if there is a contested pace between those 3 or 4 horses that we've already talked about, then it would probably pay to sit in that kind of stalking role.
Yeah, it's a front runner's track, but it can, as Tom says, lend its way to, I wouldn't even say hold up horses, honestly, sort of mid of the pack horses. You generally don't want to come from too far behind. Let's talk about Owen Almighty, because last time around was a disaster class on how not to win a race. He did manage to win. Look, he held on nicely enough in the closing stages. Obviously, he was demoted to fifth. He beat Naughty Rascal that day, who is in here, but he's going to have to improve on that form a lot to be taking a race like this.
Yeah, well, he was the talking horse basically prior to his debut at Churchill in the summer. That debut run came over 5 furlongs. He entered the race with some really good works, and he got the job done in facile fashion. And that contest has produced a couple of subsequent winners, so the form looks strong. He then stepped up to 7 furlongs at Ellis and won decisively, beating Politically Correct. And then he ran in the Iroquois, and he got beaten by Jonathan's Way, who it was a very good horse last year up until the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, where he disappointed. In that race at Tampa, he was definitely the best horse, but he didn't win with that much authority. Now, it's worth pointing out that Irad didn't fully ask him for effort because he realised that he absolutely took out a rival. He knew he was going to be DQ'd kind of halfway down the home straight, if not before then. So he wasn't fully maxed out, but he still didn't win by very far. And I tell you what I don't like in here. I don't like first-time blinkers. This is a horse that can get lit up early. He ran in a sprint on his first couple outings, especially on debut over the 5. I don't like the blinkers. I don't think he's a very good stayer at this trip. And if he gets lit up early and involved in a speed duel, I don't think he'll stay. The positives for him are that he's got the best speed figures in the race. Ira Ortiz and Brian Lynch teamed up to win it in 2022 with Classic Causeway, so they know how to win this event. And he's probably the horse to beat on all known form. But I don't like the blinkers, and that puts me off.
Yeah, I completely get where you're coming from. I don't mind the trip quite as much. I do worry about him settling. I'm also a little bit concerned about if he's a sort of horse where his form looks a lot better than maybe he actually is. Obviously, the Jonathan's Way form is very, very good. Jonathan's Way was one of the leading juveniles last year, and things maybe haven't happened for him. He's kind of a similar horse than we saw last week with Ferocious, where maybe they haven't gone on from their early efforts. But Owen Almighty that day in the Iroquois did manage to stay on for a fair way back. I don't want to say picked up the pieces because that would be quite harsh to him. He did a little bit more than that. But then last time around, he just looked a touch more laboured per se. I know Irad wasn't asking him for everything because he knew he was going to be thrown out. It was quite obvious to anyone that was watching that race or that was a participant. But I'm just not in love with Owen Almighty. It would be a different thing if Owen Almighty opened up 5-1, 6-1. But quite simply, that's not going to happen. He's going to be the favourite at least early on, and he'll be more towards 2-1. At that price, I'm absolutely not on board.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. As we say, he's a logical winner of this race. It's nothing to do with his actual chance, but betting's all about finding value, and the likelihood is he's going to be favourite or second favourite come the off and won't represent much value. There won't be much juice there, so you kind of have to oppose him. Well, we think so anyway. Who knows what will happen in the race?
Let's try and find some value then. John Hancock is a fascinating runner in this spot. Flavion Pratt, he's at Tampa Bay Downs once again. He's had a good time of things in the last week at Tampa for the Brad Cox team. I loved the debut from John Hancock. What that race really was, I don't know. The second hasn't run subsequently. The third was a horse who already had a bit of form going into the contest. And it's kind of a Tampa maiden where you're questioning things. But he couldn't have done things any better. I think he's going to be a lot better over this trip as well.
Yeah, I agree about the trip, no doubt about that. His speed figure was actually really strong on the debut as well over the 6 furlongs, but he's by constitution, he'll definitely stay. And Brad Cox knows where his horses are best placed. So he wouldn't put this horse in here if he didn't think, one, he was ready in terms of experience, and two, he thinks he's going to stay. My issues are something that you've already kind of touched on there, which was how strong was that debut field that he faced. Look, his speed figure was good, as I say, and he was visually very impressive, but I don't think he was facing much. The 4th came out since and got stuffed. The 6th has been stuffed since. They're the only 2 horses that have run subsequently. Why wasn't he sent off a shorter price? Brad Cox running at Tampa on debut. He booked Sammy Camacho, the leading rider there, and he was 11-8 in that race. I don't know. It seems a little bit off to me. I feel like if Brad loved this horse going into the debut, thinking he was a potential Derby horse, he'd be a lot shorter. Maybe I'm reading into it a little bit too much. The one thing with John Hancock that we all know is he's got unlimited upside. He's draws well, he's got early speed, and he should stay. So there are lots of ticks in the boxes, obviously Flavien Prat being another.
Yeah, absolutely. So I get 100% the point of why wasn't he better or better found in the market on debut. He was sent off 11-8, but if you're thinking of a horse that's going to go for the Sam F. Davis, then your horse is going to go off 1-3 more than anything else. But look, he still got the job done nicely. I like throughout the race how he was never really hard on the steel. He was never travelling perfectly for Sammy Camacho, who was on board that day. But once Sammy asked him to quicken, he did so. And then he was afforded the luxury for the last half a furlong, probably a little bit more, of genuinely easing down. So he was in a different class altogether than his rivals. Quiz question for you, and this will test your Sam F. Davis knowledge.
Oh, no. Go on.
What owner's group or what owner is the winning most owner in this race?
Well, I wish you would ask me which is the leading most trainer, because I know it's Todd Pletcher, which then makes me think, is it to do with the owner? What about Mike Rapoli?
Winstar.
Okay, fine.
Who
Winstar.
own John Hancock.
Yeah, and that actually does link with Todd Pletcher with a couple of his winners, so I probably should have guessed.
I mean, to be fair, they haven't won this race since 2014, so I don't actually know how much of a positive it is. They loved the race a few years ago. They absolutely loved it. But no. Actually, no, sorry. No, it's 2014. It's 2014. Todd Pletcher won it last year, 2 years ago, 2023. But we'll see. That's John Hancock, who I think's got a massive chance in this race. We've got plenty of others who you can throw in. I mean, Post is one of the more confusing horses for me. He comes into this race as a horse that we didn't expect to be running here. He managed to win the Remsen last time around when he looked fine, but I just felt everything in that race was happening in slow motion.
Yeah, I did too. And Flavien Prat was on board that day. He made his move very early and then almost got caught by a Chad Brown trainee who's probably in the B tier, maybe even C tier of 3-year-olds. So as much as it was a grade 2 and it was the Remsen, I don't think it was a very good contest. Scoot back 12 months and the Remsen was between Dornoch and Sierra Leone, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think it was the same this year. It wasn't this year, but 2024. I don't think it was the same kind of caliber of race. So, you could always say that He's won at one on dirt. He's won a grade 2 event. He's a definite player in here. He's also unbeaten because his first 2 runs came on turf. But the fact that his first 2 runs came on turf tell you that going on dirt was plan B. They thought he was a turf horse. Then they realised he had a lot of talent. Then they switched into dirt and it kind of worked. So they're sticking with it, seeing if they can get to the Kentucky Derby. Sheikh Mohammed is a big advocate of the race. He hasn't won it for God knows how many years. But he's got 4 good chances this year. Poster probably being number 4 in the ranking at this stage. I'm not with him in this race. He's an intriguing and fascinating runner in the spot, but I think he's got a lot to prove.
There are a couple of things I don't like regarding Poster, alongside everything that you've said. One of them is obviously he's penalised for that. That was a grade 2, so he has to carry a penalty and give weight away to the entirety of the field. The other one is that Antonio Gallardo is on board. Now, Gallardo is one of the leading riders at meetings week in, week out at Tampa. But when the big boys come into town, I think guys like himself, Sammy Camacho, they get found out at Tampa. They're good riders for day to day, but when the big stuff comes over, I'm really not a fan of having them on. And it's harsh because you're comparing them to Irad Ortiz Jr., you're comparing them to Flavien Prat, the best riders in the country. But at this level, that's what we have to do as bettors and as punters.
Yeah, completely agree with you. I actually much prefer Camacho than Gallardo as well. Usually, when these leading riders come across, I would still give a second look to anything Camacho rides. Gallardo's just not as strong anymore. And yeah, that would be a negative for me.
Yeah, 100% on that. Also, Antonio Gallardo really hurt me and Tom last year. Was it Ellis?
Yeah, it was Ellis, yeah.
On one of the worst rides you will ever. I can't. We had just finished our fantasy football draft, and we had this horse. Was like, to be fair, Tom put it up and said, "You need to bet this." I was like, "All right, fine." Punted him from like 4s to like 5-4, and just got the worst ride possible.
Do you remember the horse's name?
Super Awesome or something like that.
I know why you said that because you remember the silks, right?
Yeah. It was the black sleeves and white and red dots.
Yeah, I think it's called Charlotte's Approval.
Oh, yeah.
But
You are 100% right. Yeah, it was Charlotte's
yeah.
Approval. And then one,
Go watch the replay of that if you want to know what we're talking about.
yeah, Charlotte's Approval at Ellis Park. Don't watch the one afterwards where Charlotte's Approval bolted up at Woodbine. That, but yeah, that is why Antonio Gardo managed to eliminate himself from the next 4 Christmas cards list just in one ride. Let's continue going through contenders. I say contenders. You've put as the 4th contender on the list, Naughty Rascal.
Hmm.
I wouldn't describe him as a contender. I'd be shocked if he won this race, and I have him booked for about 6th.
Yep, I don't disagree, but I think we deserve to talk about him just purely because we don't get to talk about Gerald Bennett very much, the trainer. This horse obviously got awarded the Pasco that Owen Almighty then got DQ'd from. He was only half a length to a length behind Owen Almighty, so on that form line, he's got a chance. However, he's more exposed than most. His form generally isn't as good as most in this race, and he's probably not going to frame up. He won't place in this contest. However, he represents Tampa leading trainer Gerald Bennett, so this horse deserves a little bit of limelight in this contest here. And Gerald's just been a fantastic trainer, hasn't he, over the years? Usually, say we're covering Tampa on Sky, you always look towards Gerald Bennett runners first. So I thought this horse deserved a little shout out.
Yeah, he's a horse you want to win, but he's the horse that you're not going to put your money on to win. That's
Exactly.
Naughty Rascal. Let's transition into the next horse to talk about, but also into our selections as well, because I'm going to give you the lead on this, Tom. Treaty of Rome. Dylan Davis has been riding lights out in Florida. He had another. Well, it's Wednesday. Is it Wednesday?
It's Thursday here, but it's Wednesday for you, yeah.
It's Wednesday. The Wednesday card at Gulfstream Park is running fantastically once again. He switched over to Tampa for the weekend, and he'll be on board Treaty of Rome, who will be one of the leading candidates.
Yeah, and he's going to be my pick in this race. So this is immediately into picks, as you say, a lovely little streamlined link there. Treaty of Rome is the play. Now, numerous reasons. Firstly, lots of speed in this contest, as already discussed. Secondly, I'm not convinced about Owen Almighty. John Hancock, in my opinion, needs to improve, and I didn't like the market on the debut. And a couple of the others just don't really appeal. So I was looking down the race card thinking, have I missed one here? And then I came across Treaty of Rome, and I watched back some of his replays. First up on debut, was sent off a relatively short price, but it was in sprint, and he just looked like a massive, long, scopy horse that wasn't ready to win. Nevertheless, he still ran well. He finished 3rd behind Rookie Card. Now, a line through that horse would suggest Owen Almighty's a lot better than Treaty of Rome, but it was his debut over an adequate trip, so I wouldn't read too much into that. Treaty of Rome then came out and won a maiden, and he did so decisively. It wasn't a very good field, but he got the job done. Still looking raw. And then last time, I thought he was the best horse in the race. He got beat by Guns Loaded, who obviously got stuffed in the Holy Ball last week. Something was amiss with that horse, and has been amiss, in my opinion, throughout the whole year, which is why he lugged left. So again, I wouldn't read too much into the subsequent form of that contest. But Treaty of Rome pushed Guns Loaded all the way and just got done. Well, it didn't get done, but the line came astride too soon. One stride after the line, he was in front. This extra trip is going to suit him. He draws well in 2. Chad Brown has been on fire at Tampa recently. Plenty more runners than usual. And I love the booking of Dylan Davis, who's riding out of his skin. These two combine to great effect when they team up rarely up in New York. They have a very good strike rate. So I'm going to take Treaty of Rome. I think he's going to sit in that second kind of flight, maybe 5th, 6th, 7th spot on the rail and hopefully pounce late. He's the proper stayer in the race, and he's going to be my pick.
Yeah, the extra 16th will be a big help for Treaty of Rome. I think the track will be a big help for him as well. We mentioned that you don't want to come from too far off the pace. I don't think he'll be too far away from the early pace. And Tampa's a long stretch. You've got as you turn for home, you've got a long time before you pass the winning line. I think that's going to help out Treaty of Rome quite a bit. He was 2nd/3rd on my list in this contest. But one thing you mentioned, he's ginormous. There's so much of him. You look at him. He wins the award, by the way, for horse in this race that I would least like to run into me.
Are we going to do this throughout the whole of 2025?
I'm fine with it. I'm fine to award that. I'm going to get little trophies, box them up, and send them over. So Chad Brown, the plastic trophies in the post. I'm going to look elsewhere. You might have worked out from what I was saying earlier on about who the selection is, but I'm with John Hancock in here. I loved his debut effort. I did text Tom earlier on, by the way, and we're allowed to go for the same selection, so it's whatever. But it was before we knew the actual entries. We just had the probable ones, and I said dibs on the Brad Cox horse. So John Hancock is mine. I loved his debut. As I say, I don't know how strong the race actually was. I'm not sure how good it actually was, but I do think John Hancock will be a fair bit better for the run. He needs to improve, don't get me wrong, but I do think that will be happening. I like how he laid up early on in the contest as well. The extra distance is going to be a big positive, and you watch him at the line. He had just started going away, and then Sammy Camacho took back. He just eased him down close to home. It's just a case of whether he's going to be good enough. But he should be at the sort of price where you can play him, sort of looking 7-2, around that kind of price. He'll be vying for second in the market, one would think. But I'm with John Hancock, and if he is going to take that step forward, Tom, he's definitely a legit player.
Yeah, you are kind of taking potential into this. Obviously, on what he's done so far, it's hard to recommend him. But with this team and the upside, I can certainly see it for sure. I'll have a bet with you that he goes off shorter than 7-2. Would you take that?
Well, no, I'm not going to take that because I think he will go off shorter than 7-2. But I do think 7-2 will be available in the UK in the early conceptions of the market.
If it is, then I think that's good value. I think he'll go off 5-2, maybe even 9-4. Owen Almighty is going to be favourite, or at least open favourite, but I don't know how strong he's going to be in the market. So the wise guys are going to be looking for the shrewd horse. When you see a Brad Cox trainee, that one might be it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, selections-wise, Tom siding with Treaty of Rome. I'm siding with John Hancock. We are drawn in stalls 2 and 3, more towards the rail. That is horse racing in the books. Like I say, go check out our Super Bowl preview. Even if you're not going to watch the game, you are, then you can maybe find a way to have a bet into the contest and hopefully make some money on the Super Bowl. And also, we are on the road to 500 subscribers. We are literally a few away at the moment. We've been overwhelmed with the support from you guys recently, which has been absolutely wonderful. Hopefully, that can continue into the NFL offseason and onto the road to the Kentucky Derby. Subscribe, leave a comment down below and everything else. Tom, you can go sleep.
Superb. Absolutely buzzing. See you soon.
Thanks, guys, for watching. We're back next week on the Turf and Touchdowns podcast. Until we next get to speak to you, stay safe, look after one another. Goodbye.